welcome to the Gwinnett Force. I'm Julie Money, along with my fellow Family Violence Task Force members, Sergeant Tracy Lee.
Hello.
Along with Jennifer Hope.
Hey, Julie.
And TJ Alvarado.
Hi.
On this episode, we'll be discussing suicide prevention. Sergeant Lee, before we start our discussion, can you update us on some of the things that have been going on since our last show?
Well, since our last show, we've had quite a few things happen, actually. First thing I wanted to mention was the Family Violence Unit that I work for was nominated for a Valor Award in the category of Unit of the Year.
Oh, that's great.
Congratulations.
Yes,
Much deserved.
we got to dress up in suits and ties and go down to the...
Well, that's different for you all, isn't it?
Yeah. And have a real nice lunch. And actually, we did not win. It was an honor to be nominated, but the Gwinnett Police Department, their 911 center, won that particular award.
Okay.
And, you know, they deserved it. They got a fantastic operation over there. Also, the Valor Awards was taped by TV Gwinnett, and it's currently airing on the Comcast.
We'll have to check that out.
Yeah, so it was interesting. Anyway, I want to show you a picture of our group as we went down there to the awards. We all cleaned up very nicely, actually.
I don't even recognize anybody here.
Yeah, don't recognize
You guys look great.
I know.
And
Jeremy.
so,
Well,
Speaking of Jeremy,
that was nice.
I hear he's leaving.
well, yes, sad news to report.
Well, not leaving
The Sheriff's
the
Department.
Sheriff's Department. He's just...
He's leaving the Family Violence Unit, and Lieutenant Brown has been part of the Family Violence Unit for about 10 years. And, you know, nobody knows family violence like Lieutenant Brown.
I know he's
He's
amazing.
been, he's been amazing this whole
So
entire time.
his new assignment is with the Professional Standards Unit,
Okay.
which is internal affairs, basically. So he has a very prestigious position now at the Sheriff's Department, and we all wish him well.
Oh,
Yeah.
absolutely.
We're
We'll
gonna
miss
miss him.
him with us, but we're happy that he's
He's
moving forward.
he has
Getting a good guy.
contributed so much
Yeah,
to domestic violence over the last decade.
I know.
I want to mention a news story that happened very recently. This was about a woman who shot a man and a woman down in Duluth, and then she returned to the scene and ran the man over after he was shot with her car. Then she pulled over into a parking lot and then shot herself, committed suicide, which is what we're talking about today. And, you know, we talked about it before the show. We've been speculating that it was some kind of...
Yeah, we're unsure what the relationship
Right.
is right now, but we, you know.
We're assuming it was some kind of lover's triangle kind of thing.
Yeah, it definitely appeared to be DV related in some way.
So that was pretty dramatic.
Definitely taking out some anger issues.
And, you know, this will probably bring the homicides in Gwinnett this year up to around 16 approximately.
Okay.
And we are only in April
Yes.
Last year we were at 29.
for the whole year.
And I talked to an Atlanta homicide.
Oh, goodness. Okay.
I talked to an Atlanta homicide detective, and they told me they were only at like 14 a couple weeks ago. So just to kind of put it in perspective, you know.
Well, and there's a lot of different variables right now. You know, people are still
These are some
stressed
crazy
out
times.
about,
There's
you know,
a
the
lot of
economy.
stress, gas
There's a lot of
prices,
identity
jobs.
changes with
Gwinnett's
job-related
number one in
things.
foreclosures. I mean, there's factors out there.
Yep, yep.
What about the Blaze for Life, the fundraiser?
Well, our first annual fundraiser was absolutely spectacular. I'm really happy and thankful for everyone that came out to support us. We had representatives from all of our local law enforcement departments, which is, of course, our sheriffs.
It was an honor.
And we had fire, we had PD, and we had many members from our task force attend as well.
I couldn't believe how nice it was. It was like going to the Academy Awards or something. And look at this picture here of TJ and the other guys from the task force.
Oh, how pretty.
Very nice. Where was this held?
This was held at Happy Valley Asian Cuisine Restaurant in Norcross in Jimmy Carter. So it was a very well-attended event.
A large event.
It was very,
very nice.
We had representatives from our county that
She did
showed
an
up.
amazing job putting this thing together. I was just shocked.
Yeah.
So-
Wouldn't expect any different.
And I even got a
I know, right?
I got a
It's
pin
a-
out
Oh,
of
that's very nice.
Yes.
Blaze for Life.
Yes,
Well, good.
so everyone that came out got a pin. Our theme, which happens every year, it's called Light Up the Darkness. So be the light, save a life. And by letting your light shine in the life of others and shining the light on violence where we know it hides and it continues to grow, if we would just be that light for someone else and let them know that you know, we do have great resources here in Gwinnett. So
Thank you. That's
it was
wonderful.
fabulous. Yeah.
All right, we're going to start the discussion on suicide prevention.
Okay.
Okay.
So how about, have you, any of you known anybody that's committed suicide?
Yes, I have. I think most of us
Yeah.
do, unfortunately. I'll share a quick story. Back when I was younger, my next door neighbor, who was 19, a young man named Brian Foote, he got married when he was 18, really young. And at 19, his wife left him. And he went into a massive depression. And next thing we know, I got the news that he had took his own life in the garage with, turning the car on. Yeah, carbon monoxide.
Carbon monoxide poisoning.
And, that suicide I've thought about throughout my whole life, because here's a kid I grew up with, and, every time I'm at a Super Bowl party or something, having a good time, I think, this kid took his life at 19, and now he's missing all these wonderful things throughout life over something that he probably would have got over and found someone else.
Well, and that's the whole thing, is there's a clinical term called helplessness, and so when people feel like they're helpless or hopeless, those committing suicide is something that comes very naturally because they're unable to see the future. They're unable to think about a plan. And so all these wonderful things that you've experienced, it's hard for them to see like that could even happen.
Yeah, what it does to the family is just...
Oh, it's horrible.
They say that it's a very selfish act.
Yeah.
Who else?
They even say it is. It's a permanent solution to a temporary
I've
problem.
used that quite a few times. Who else has had friends or family? Or?
When I was in graduate school, I got a call saying that a good friend that we had, grown up with, that he shot himself in the head. And he was...
Which is leading cause of suicides.
About 60%.
Not cause, leading...
I'll have
means
some interesting
of
statistics
suicide.
to show in a little while.
But,
Okay. Yeah.
he was 26. And so, kind of those same things that you're talking about are the things that he's missed out on. He was always so nice, friendly, outgoing. Even the people that worked with him right up until the day that he shot himself said those same things. No clue.
Wow.
How about you?
Well, this person wasn't directly associated with me, but was a very, very good friend and long-time standing person that they associate with in business, of some very close friends of mine that I consider family. And the shock, the shock wave, or how it ripples, is they were just in dismay for several days. I mean, at the office, and the biggest thing was, unlike your stories where the individual was younger, this guy also was a male, but he was very much established. He was probably over 60. And it just made no sense. He was an accomplished individual in business. He was prior military, and had a very loving wife in the relationship, and it was just a shock. So
Depression
makes you wonder.
Plays a big part in it. I was reading that Mike Wallace, who just passed away, tried to commit suicide back in the 80s. Something to do with, he went into depression over a lawsuit that was filed against him. So he was battling depression for a long time. The only situation that I could come up with was when my daughter's principal committed suicide at school. She took a gun to school and killed herself in her office, which
Well,
I don't understand
We
that.
unfortunately had a deputy at the Sheriff's Department take his own life back late last fall. And it was kind of a domestic situation where, I don't know all the details, but it was a sad thing. He was probably about 32 or 3 years old. That's still a young man to me. And that was quite, tragic for us to have to deal with.
Well, I am interested on the statistics you've got, Tracy, because, we do know what just recently has occurred in the news with a female, but all of us are given accounts of men. So I'm curious,
No,
what
my
do
daughter's
statistics
principal
reflect?
was a woman.
Oh,
She
she
was
was a
in her
woman
60s,
too.
yeah.
Okay, woman in
Yeah.
the 60s. Okay.
Before we get into that, let's take a
Yeah.
quick break, and then we'll talk about some statistics when we come back.
Okay.
Stay
Okay.
tuned.
Thanks.
Looking for these? You drive buzzed. It could be one very expensive ride.
First, you gotta make bail. Then pay me to get your car back.
Your insurance premiums will go through the roof.
And my legal fees just keep adding up. All told, it could end up costing you $10,000.
Nothing kills a buzz like getting pulled over for buzz driving, because buzz driving is drunk driving.
Welcome back. Jennifer, can you please tell us about Atlanta Family Counseling and whether you've seen an increase in suicidal thought, people with suicidal thoughts?
Yes, I'm a licensed professional counselor, and all of our therapists are licensed. And in the last couple years, we have seen an increase with people having more suicidal thoughts. And so what that looks like is an increase of the feelings of helpless and hopelessness, like we talked about earlier.
Well, let me ask you this. Is it common for people to have suicidal thoughts? I mean...
Well, there are certain things that we'll assess for. So there's 4 main things. We're going to assess if you have a plan, if you have the means to carry that plan out, if it's time set, and do you have the intention to do so. If you have all 4 of those, that's when we would call the police. We have a relationship with Summit Ridge Behavioral Health Hospital where they will admit somebody. We also have a licensed clinical social worker on staff that can 1013 somebody. And so what that looks like is to go ahead and admit them in based on the clinical observations. So those are the 4 main things. If you have all 4 of those things, that is very serious, and that
also kind of what you look for when there's somebody's going to try to kill somebody, like a homicide.
Yes, exactly.
Which I don't understand why we don't have a homicide hotline. We have a suicide hotline.
So if somebody comes into the office and they have, let's say 2 or 3 of these, we're obviously going to make sure that their emergency contact is aware. We do not want these people to be alone. We'll also do a suicide contract plan, which looks like, okay, I promise I'm not going to, commit suicide. If I'm feeling as if I am, I'm going to call this person, the hotline, and so there's a variety of things that we can go through with the safety plan.
And how do you think that works? I mean, is it successful?
It is pretty successful because there's an accountability factor. So if they know that somebody's helping them or supporting them, that's very huge.
And where is your
with
office
prevention?
located?
We're right off Lawrenceville Highway, so we're only about a mile from the Justice Center.
Can you give us the phone number?
Yes, it's 770-513-8988. And we're not a 24-hour facility, but if you did need immediate help, we do have 5 licensed therapists on staff, so we'd be able to get you in.
Right, and I'm sure everyone, of course, knows there's suicide hotlines we'll talk about later in 911, but I'd like to mention something about some Gwinnett statistics that I've recently met with one of the medical examiners in Gwinnett, Robert Bumgardner, and he was kind enough to give me some statistics. I wanted to show one from the year 2000 to 2010. In the red here are the suicides, and you can see an increase in 2010, how they've gone up statistically just in the last few years. And it was a...
Well, there's a lot of different variables associated with that. Obviously, there's financial problems that a lot of people haven't experienced up until the last couple of years. There's also identity issues. In Western culture, we very much identify ourselves with our career. And so a lot of the people that have lost their jobs no longer have that identity. So they're feeling a sense of overwhelming with, who am I now? What am I supposed to do? I failed. Where the reality is it's not necessarily their fault at this point in time.
Right. Have you seen anyone in your office when you say based on identity? Because we know that too in our modern world now, we do recognize same-sex relationships, and with the increase in social networking like Facebook, and you've got cyberbullying going on or ridiculing going on because of a person's personal choice. I'm curious, has anyone come through your office with those identity issues and rooted in suicidal
I see that
thoughts?
a lot with the adolescents.
Okay.
So typically ages 12 through 18, where the social media is a huge part of their everyday life, every hour life, pretty much.
My daughter, 24 hours, 7 days a week, we're in a movie theater. She's it drives me insane.
Yeah, because they have pages that will say, "Oh, I hate this person," and you can like that as a page. And I think we may have talked about that in our cyberbullying show, but yeah, it's
But I know I've read a lot of different cases, not necessarily just in Georgia, but instances where an individual did commit suicide.
well, there was that. Oh, right, okay.
This next statistic is suicides broken down by age. Kind of interesting. The highest age range is age 50 through 59.
That's here.
Yeah.
In Gwinnett County. These are
male or
Gwinnett's.
female?
That's male.
Well,
That's males?
these are both.
Okay.
Now, this is a Gwinnett statistic. This is not, national. This is here in Gwinnett.
That's in 2010.
This 2010.
18 50 to 59-year-olds committed
So
suicide.
basically, on this statistic, age 30 to 60 is your highest.
Yeah, and
And
typically,
what is that telling you, though? All these people probably have gone through a drastic financial situation.
Yeah, in older adults, you see it a lot too. Back to the identity thing, if people have retired, if they're forced to change jobs, they no longer have that sense of security or sense of self.
We actually had a 90 to 99-year-old commit suicide.
Yeah.
Oh, my Lord.
And
I'm looking at what you got there.
according to the medical examiner, that's usually because of health reasons. You get really old like that. And,
Oh, that's it.
You know.
Because I got this one from the CDC. This is also 2010. And suicide rates for men comparable to what we've got in Gwinnett, 75 and older, is the highest percentage. So in the nation on the whole.
And you
like
can
said, we've got some in
also
our...
attribute things like loss of a spouse to that, retirement, not having a sense of self-worth, those types of issues. When you get into an older age bracket, unfortunately there are a lot of people that you will lose. And so there becomes a sense of, well, why am I here by myself? There's nothing else to live for.
You know what I wonder, too, with the transition where you think in a way our nation's becoming healthier and you have active senior living communities. I do have some friends, though, that are facing those kind of decisions for their own parents. And I wonder if, like you said, they lose a spouse or they can no longer live independently. Is that what they perceive as a better option? Because those numbers, like you said, compared to teens and middle age, things that we battle, but then the statistics actually reflect higher aged individuals that take their lives.
Well, and you think about the support too. So a lot of people prior to 30 have more social support, hopefully, with the parents being in the home and things like that. Once you reach that older developmental stage and you're losing people around you, there's nobody to turn to.
Gotcha.
And this statistic right here is showing that white males
yeah, this
are the highest.
This statistic here is a breakdown by race and sex, actually. White males dominated the suicides in 2010 with 49.
Then followed by white females at 19.
And by white females.
Black males at 7. No black females.
No.
Hispanic men, 5. Hispanic females.
I don't have a good explanation for that. I mean, do you?
No. Well, here's a trend, though, but that's all related to domestic violence. And this comes from the International Family Aggression Society, domestic violence-related deaths and how it attributes to suicide. To read this, share the small part, it says, our sons are being raised in a society where the government focuses on the victimization of our daughters while ignoring or minimizing the victimization of our sons. And it goes on to say that our sons are growing up in a society where males serve longer prison sentences than females, where women live longer than men, and then also we have more males than females that are dropping out of high school. So when you take all those different things into account, it kind of makes sense why, as far as the suicide rates, it's our white males that are committing more suicides than any other
And they seem
population.
to be doing it more in July than any other month.
Yeah, that's an
Why is
interesting
that?
statistic here. Suicides
Probably
by
in
month.
December. Yeah.
Okay, this is Gwinnett.
Well,
Pretty level, except July.
Spikes
There's a
in
spike.
July, and then it spikes in
You know,
December.
and there's typically a lot more turmoil in the summer months, particularly towards the end. We see a lot of clients in crisis during that time, and so you know there's a lot to say about when temperatures are high and people maybe aren't functioning as well as they would, or they don't feel like they can cool down or get their thought processes
And I can
to a
understand,
reasonable level.
You know, December suicides, the holidays,
of
the
course.
you know,
Yes,
the
yes.
depression or whatever.
Yes, yes.
The July one caught me off guard.
That surprises me too. I wonder what the statistics on domestic violence are during that time period as well.
They're probably pretty high in the summer.
I do think that I had recognized that during that time there was more violence in general.
The last statistic I have here is suicide by method. Overwhelming gunshot wound to the head.
Yeah, I
is
had. Okay, and yeah, and I had seen a national statistic about 60% were by firearms.
Yes, that's right. The statistics says that for females that their choice is poisoning.
Yes, yeah,
Right.
about 40%.
Yeah, and not to blame the gun, because the gun is a tool, obviously.
Absolutely.
But if it's available and convenient, then I can, you know.
We had 2 people use a train.
Well, there was,
you know,
2 people in Gwinnett
Yeah,
County
I mean, if you have.
jumped in front of a train or parked in front of, you know, back in 2010, and you know, it's and the reason behind these breakdowns is to try to give people an idea, you know, what to look for as far as risk factors with their family members or friends. You know, if you have a depressed family member or something, you might not want to have your gun available in the house somewhere or something. I mean,
Great point.
you know, just, you know, but we're going to get into that a little bit later about, you know, how to determine risk factors and things. But anyway, I want to thank the medical examiner for giving me these statistics, because I thought they were very
Great
interesting.
information. Very much so. We'll take a quick break. We'll come back and we'll talk to Jennifer about some warning signs. Stay with us.
Did you know kids who play outdoors have healthier lungs?
Totally.
Did you know that boys that play with dolls make better husbands?
My son has lots of dolls. But did you know terry cloth diapers breathe better?
I did.
It's totally true.
Oh, yeah.
Did you guys know statistically friendly kids have more friends?
Yeah.
That's obvious.
Did you know most people think they're using the right car seat for their kid, but they're not?
Parents who really know it all know for sure that their child is in the right seat. Visit safercar.gov/the right seat to make sure your child is protected.
Welcome back. Jennifer, real quick, let's talk about some warning signs.
Okay. So there's a couple things that we're going to be mindful of. If somebody is talking about suicide a lot, I wish I had never been born, I'd be better off dead, those types of statements you'll want to be really mindful of. Seeking out lethal means, and so that could look like paying more attention to guns when there wasn't an interest before, stockpiling pills, maybe getting some materials that didn't seem appropriate or anything at the time. Preoccupation with death or violence, so that could look like a lot of different things.
And what about people that cut themselves or do self-inflicted type injuries?
Yeah, typically that's indicative of somebody that has anxiety, and so they use cutting behaviors as a way to release that emotion. Okay. Just because they're cutting doesn't mean they're suicidal. Okay.
Maybe looking for attention.
Well, no, it's a release.
Out.
That's their coping skill. So yes, they obviously would need a better coping skill. The bad thing though is when you're cutting, sometimes there's so many veins right here and so many nerves that you can cut. Sometimes they go too deep, and suicide is a result of that. But that would be unintentional. But at the same time, it's still an act. Feelings of the helplessness and hopelessness. I know we talked about that earlier. Think there's no way out. I'm never going to get better. Things are never going to change.
Money problems,
money
health
problems.
reasons, failed relationships, they're all
Yeah, so depression is a
put
big
people
part
in,
of that.
in a risk category, I guess.
There's other things to look for, increase of alcohol or drug abuse, giving their things away, saying goodbye,
So
and
if
older
you're a family
adults.
member or friend observing these kind of behaviors, that's
Those are very high.
What do you do, though, at that point? It's
Well,
not like you can call and report them and that behavior. How do you help them?
Well, you can say, I'm here to support you. Saying things like, no, look on the bright side, things like that are not going to be helpful because they're not able to recognize that. So seeking professional help by a licensed counselor, psychologist, something like that would be beneficial. You can ask them, do you have a plan? Do you have the intent to do that? And if they do, then you need to call 911 immediately or go to the emergency room or a behavioral health hospital so that they can get the treatment they need immediately.
One thing I'll mention too is family members and friends can get a probate order or apply for one at the courthouse, and a probate order basically will allow sheriff's deputies to go pick somebody up and have involuntarily committed and you know, so that
for an evaluation.
Yeah, typically they'll keep them for 72 hours on suicide watch.
If you get your family member or a person to a regular hospital in the ER and say you just need to get there and maybe talk to someone, if the staff or in triage, they hear that individual say any of those, I'd say, key phrases like, you know, I just want to die, or I just don't want to live anymore, I want to kill myself. If I'm speculating, because I want to know if this is true, if you guys know. Is that an automatic where the staff will then say, okay, this person has to be kept and go
They'll
to behavior?
assess for those four things we talked about. So they'll look at if you have a plan, if you have a means, if it's time, and if you're intending to do something like that.
Okay.
Yeah.
We spoke earlier about Facebook, and we have an article here about a woman in Taiwan who was actually chatting on Facebook while she was inhaling fumes from a charcoal grill that she lit, and she eventually died.
Okay.
So she committed suicide, and she told everybody that she was speaking with at the time that she no longer wanted to live. It was her birthday. Her boyfriend wasn't around. He never showed up for her birthday, so she was distraught about that, very unhappy. And apparently the people that she was chatting with on Facebook tried to find her, but didn't call 911 or anything.
Yeah, that would be the thing to do.
So there's a 67-minute time span when she started talking about killing herself and until she died. So
she documented it all on Facebook?
On Facebook. And she actually took a picture.
She did a video, or she just...
One picture uploaded from her mobile phone depicts a charcoal barbecue burning next to 2 stuffed animals. Another shows a room filled with fumes. So she actually posted pictures of this while it's going on.
Facebook has definitely brought on a lot of unique situations that we have to deal with.
Well, and if that's happening now, if that ever happens, is to call 911 immediately.
Right.
And the police can come over there.
A lot of times you don't know these people that you're talking to.
Right.
You don't know where they're at. And I think that's the situation that was going on here. People that were chatting with her, they had no idea who she was or how to get a hold of her.
I want to mention a quick little video that you can watch. It's called More Than Sad. It's on teen depression. Got this from Chris Owens, who's with the American Foundation for Suicide Prevention in Lawrenceville.
Okay.
And so there's another, Lawrenceville connection here for suicide prevention. But anyway, this video, it's about 26 minutes long, and it's really interesting. And I think any parent that has a teenager that they even think might do something really should watch this video. And
I was flipping through here, and they said that the target age was about 14 to 18 years old for this video. And they have a couple different scenarios. That looks like a really interesting video. I'd love to watch it. Is there any way that anybody can get a hold of this?
I'm not sure if it's on YouTube, but
it should be.
What we can do is put her information on our website.
Yeah, let's do it.
And if somebody wants to contact her personally, she said there was videos available.
Their website is www.afsp.org. So that looks like a really informational
It really is good.
DVD. Right, we have a couple hotlines to call. You can call 1-800-SUICIDE,
That's a national.
That's a national hotline.
Yeah, or
So-
we can call the Gwinnett helpline.
Of course, you can call 911.
Right. I mean, 911, obviously, if you've got a situation that's out of hand.
When I worked on the crisis line, for the domestic violence crisis line, I would get phone calls for suicidal people, and so it's people are reaching out there. They just don't really know where to go. So we do have a lot of information about that, and all that will be up on our website. Our website is GwinnettFamilyViolence.com. .org, you're right. And do you have any other last thoughts?
Well, hopefully someone watching this show, if they've had suicidal thoughts or something, will get help. I mean, if we can prevent a suicide, then all of this is worth it, obviously. I think people need to depend on their family and friends.
Yeah, and it's very important to seek out professional help if you feel that's happening, because a lot of people, knowing that they have social support is great, but to seek a professional so that there can be, cognitive behavioral therapy or some dialectical behavioral therapy has been proven to be really effective. It's going to be helpful.
It's easier to seek help from a stranger rather than your family.
Sure.
Because so I'm sure there's support groups there. I'm sure there's support groups available out there. And
yeah, I've seen what suicide does to families. One time I had this young girl I knew that was crying to me, telling me her dad committed suicide, and I said, it's kind of like he took his pain and gave it to you, and now he's free of it. But
what a burden.
She has to live with the pain of that for the rest of her life. And it's really hard on the families and friends.
That's such a shame. Such a shame.
I wanted to mention, right before we close, I did happen to find this International Association for Suicide Prevention, IASP, and they're on Facebook, and they have World Suicide Prevention Day, which for this coming year, I believe it takes place in September, but you can go to the website or look them up on Facebook. World Suicide Prevention Day. This organization's been around for 30 years, and it's an awareness event, like we have other community things to get involved. Great. But it's everywhere.
And one thing I want to mention, I mean, this real quick, it's kind of sobering, was a statistic that every 43 seconds somebody attempts suicide, just to put it in perspective.
Yeah, I think I read it was about...
Every 18 minutes somebody dies from suicide. So in the time we've done this show, a couple of people have taken their life somewhere.
Wow. Yeah, I think that 30,000 Americans a year commit suicide.
Yeah.
Well, what's interesting?
Yeah.
How we've mentioned how domestic violence and kind of crosses over with suicide rates, and we're aware of the DV victims being female, that greater percentage. Well, for males, their suicide rate is 4 times the rate of females. So that puts a big shift.
Could be a homicide-suicide situation in that event.
Why don't you tell our viewers a little bit about Blaze for Life?
I'd love to. Thank you, Tracy. At Blaze for Life, our mission is dedicated to the prevention of violence on women, adolescents, and disabled persons. So what we do is we go out in the community, we partner with local law enforcement agencies in teaching self-defense and violence prevention, which covers bullying prevention. It also covers safety for kids. We don't use the term stranger danger because the possibility of a child being hurt is greater when it comes from somebody they know as opposed to a total stranger. We also teach classes of effective self-defense for persons who have limited abilities. So whether you're in a wheelchair or you're an able-bodied person, if you've got a temporary injury, we teach effective strategies, and more importantly, we emphasize boundaries because avoidance is effective self-defense.
And where can they go?
They can find us in 2 different places. You can either go to our webpage, which is blazeforlife.org, blaze4life.org, or you can find us in the Gwinnett Village building in Norcross, Georgia, right off Jimmy Carter and I-85. We're in Suite 170. Our phone number is 888-517-4440, extension 111.
Thank you, TJ. I appreciate that.
She's pretty good. I don't know if you remember that.
Oh, no. I've taken the class.
TJ flung me over her shoulders.
I took the class. Maybe I'm next.
Hey, why don't you see
favorite word?
Yeah.
My L9 has been herniated ever since. So.
You poor thing.
It was a great class, by the way. I still think about that.
Well, that's all the time we have for this episode. We'd like to thank our guest host, Jennifer Hope,
Thanks,
and TJ Alvarado for joining us on this very important topic.
Thank you both.
We would like to also thank you for watching the Gwinnett Force. We hope to see you again soon on TV Gwinnett.